It's fascinating. So,
but see, that's what we're hoping the teachers see, not the crazy tightrope walking. And
no, the point
the
is not that.
People being freed up to do it.
The point is that this guy decided to do this before the Twin Towers were even created. He read an article in a dentist's office when he was a kid about the Twin Towers were being built, and he realized he wanted to walk a tightrope between them. And they weren't even built yet. And he had no idea how he was going to do it, but that's what I'm talking about is resonance. That moment of where you say, I want to do that. And for me, when I first saw a computer keyboard in a picture, I wanted to play with the keyboard. I wanted to press the keys on the keyboard. That's what I really wanted to do, is to understand how these mechanical things worked and electrical things worked so that I could be the king of them. And it was years until I got to play with my first keyboard and get to really do that. But then, that drew me on. But then, as I told you, that wasn't really my calling, but that got me closer to what I really wanted to do. What I really want to do is teach people, is to introduce people to their own talent. And you found that at a young age.
And what we're in school, we're saying is what gets people to where they want to be is to go through high school and go through college, and that's what I'm calling into question. And so this is what I want help with. Erin has done Spanish in the lab, and this weekend we've talked, and she's thinking about not even doing Spanish because now she's finding something else that she's really fascinated with. It's working with young kids. But what she's doing with the young kids this is my pushback, and I'm just questioning it deeply. What she's doing with young kids is the same thing that she's not liking about Spanish. I mean, teaching them, deciding what they need to learn and teaching them that, as opposed to just exposing them to a bunch of stuff and then facilitating whatever kind of questioning and curiosity that goes on there. And I know there's a ton of pushback on it, but I want to hear it from you guys. I want you to chop it to pieces so that we can, come a little further, or
Erin made an attempt at that earlier.
So I'm bringing her back.
Yeah, and it was a pretty good attempt. It was a pretty good I thought you had a pretty good response.
I feel like what you just said, you said that something about school, I just don't even remember anymore. You said school is for finding things that you. What did you say?
He had just said that he realized that he had to do some things in order to get to where he wanted to be, and now as a society we believe, this is what's been drilled into us, is that school and college is the thing that we have to do in order to get to do.
Yeah, the myth is that you have to go through the steps. You have to play this game. That this is the most efficient way. That if you don't do this, you're wasting your time. And we're questioning all that.
But what I see at school is we're given tools by people who already know how to use them. We're being taught how to use the tools that we have everywhere to find what we want to do. Like, if I hadn't been given the tools to learn Spanish, I wouldn't have had the tools to be like, I can learn this by myself. And then you gave me the tools to go somewhere else and teach someone else something. And then I found that it's a process that you can't, when you're little, you can't just be like, I want this. You have to have things to build up to something that you really want, because when you're little, you want candy, or you want this, and you want this, but you don't know what wanting something is until you've been given the tools to find something that you want.
But you don't necessarily have to have somebody else tell you that.
You definitely
moved into my own apartment when I was 14.
When
I was 14, I lived alone for my first time, and my father paid me child support directly to me, and I had to shop for myself for the first time, and this was totally illegal, but I did it. We did it anyway because it was rural Vermont and no one was really paying attention. But I was a minor living without a guardian, and I quickly found out that if I eat sweet stuff only, I get sick. and I didn't like feeling sick, so I stopped doing that. You know, I experimented, and I found out that candy is a really bad thing to try to live on. Okay, you discover that in about 3 days. About 3 days, you get so horribly sick that you just throw up everything because it's just sugar. You basically become glycemic or whatever it is. And so then I started thinking, like, okay, I better start eating some other stuff. What's more like regular good food that I should eat? So I couldn't afford very much, so I ended up eating a lot of soup and spaghetti and different things. But I didn't buy a lot of sugary things after that event.
That's your own trial.
Right. You can learn these
Experience.
things on your own. You don't necessarily have to have somebody drag you through. In fact, if someone does drag you through, you might not believe it. It might be absolutely true that they know, oh, you shouldn't do this. If you do this, you're going to be in big trouble. But, you know, if I'm teaching somebody to drive, for instance, I could tell them that if you jam on the brake, you actually lose control of the car. So you got to be very careful with the brake. But I know that what I have to do, and I've done this with a few people that I've taught how to drive, is I want to take them out to a parking lot, especially when it's icy. And I want them to just go nuts, just like drive around and lose control of the car. Slam on the brake and feel what it feels like for the car to go out of control in a safe environment. I want to do this with my son. You know, I want to create situations where he's doing something and I know it's probably going to not work.
That's exactly it, though, because not everybody has that safe environment. And not everybody can go and take a failure and turn it into something that they learn from.
Who can't?
So people can.
Who?
We're not all the same, though. We're not all these people who can
I know we're
process
not all
all
the
this
same,
stuff
but
and have all this.
Tell me, give me an example of somebody that you have met who does not learn from their mistakes.
I can't give you one.
I know. So you have this belief because you've been told. Apparently, somebody told you that there are people who exist that don't learn from their mistakes. That don't learn from trying things personally. And I've heard this too. But every time I ask somebody, like, give me an example of a person who doesn't do that, I never can. But notice that when I asked you for an example of a moment where you felt excited about working with kids, you instantly had an example of that. That you find that very easy to come to your mind. Now that person who you worked with, that child you worked with, you didn't reach into their brains and force them to learn, right? I mean, you created an environment. You created a moment for them where it was easier than if you hadn't been there. That's why you feel good about it, you know, because it's like they are trying to basically climb up the sheer wall and they can't climb up the wall, and you showed them that there's stairs. You can just walk. See, you take one at a time, and and you can get up it, and then you suddenly realize that you're on the second floor. And wow, isn't that an amazing feeling? But you don't make them do that. You show them a way because you can't actually force anybody to think anything. That's the wonderful thing about teaching is that you're working with people doing things by themselves, and yet you still are responsible. But you're not taking. People aren't inert. Everybody reacts to you. There's a story of dolphins that I just read about. Actually, it's porpoises. There's a porpoise. There was a program in 1960 somewhere in some university. I don't remember where. I was reading about it. They would train this porpoise a new trick every day because they're trying to teach people how to train porpoises. So every day they teach the porpoise a new trick with a new set of students, right? And the porpoise, though, would get really confused because every time it would come out and do the trick that it did yesterday, and it wouldn't get any fish. So it would get frustrated. It would try something else, and then it would get some fish, and it would go like, "Oh, that's what you wanted me to do." And it would learn the trick, and then it would go away again. And this would happen over and over again until one day, like 8 days